right, if you have your Bibles today, meet me in Genesis chapter 26. We finished the story of Isaac amongst the Philistines and all that transpired during that episode in 26. But these last two verses transition and segue into chapter 27. So this is one of those instances where the chapter verses end is probably not accurate. Verses 34 and 35 of chapter 26 go into chapter 27 because we transition. There are transitional verses that lead us back into the story of Esau and Jacob, as we've had a brief pause in 26, focusing on Isaac amongst the Gerites and the Philistines. So in this story, we're reminded of Jesus' famous words that a house divided against itself will not, cannot, and shall not stand. And what we wanted to do is to take Jesus' wise words and apply them to Genesis 27. And if we were to apply Jesus' words to Genesis 27, we would tweak that phrase a little bit and say a house divided against itself endangers, jeopardizes the blessing and the destiny. Because what we're going to see is that Isaac and Rebekah are divided amongst their favorite sons, and how it potentially tears this family apart. So meet me Genesis 26, verses 34 and 35. As we transition, Moshe wants to point out how unworthy Esau is to be the future patriarch of the family. And he wants to do that by showing Esau's contempt for the covenant. Verses 34 and 35, it says, when Esau was 40 years old, he took as his wives Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hethite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hethite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. So here in these opening verses, we see that Esau's contempt for the covenant, by showing Esau's own actions that he's unworthy to be the patriarchal successor because he arranges his own marriages, circumventing his parents' role. You guys remember in Genesis 24, as Abraham sent his servant all the way to Haran to get Rebekah for Isaac. They practice marriage within family, within tribe, within the clan. And here Esau shows his contempt, his disregard and disrespect for the role of his parents to arrange his marriage. You guys heard Dr. CV talked about how his parents arranged his marriage to his wife in India. And here Esau takes the responsibility of arranging his own marriages. That shows his contempt for his parents. Also, he marries outside of Terah's family, his grandfather's family, against his mother's and his father's wishes. He supersizes his contempt for his parents and the covenant by marrying Canaanites, and not just marrying a Canaanite, but marrying two of them. If there's anything worse than a Canaanite, it's two Canaanites. And here Esau marries them both. And the consequences of his contempt and disrespect and disregard for his parents and their role in his life. And sure, he's a 40-year-old man, but so was Isaac 40 when he marries Rebekah. And so he brings a bitterness to the family, and it shows that he doesn't care about the covenant, and it shows that he's destined to blow the blessings that would have and could have come his way. And so Esau is being depicted by Moshe as being a sibling who is unworthy to be the future patriarch. And so Moshe is filling in the character arc for Esau, because not only does he have disregard and disrespect and contempt for his birthright, but he also has disrespect and disregard and contempt for the covenant. And so we have to conclude at this point from what we've seen that Esau is unworthy and undeserving of the responsibility to be the next patriarch of the family. And so in spite of that, Isaac is committed to give the patriarchal blessing. In chapter 27, verses 1 through 4, we see Isaac's commitment to bless Esau in spite of the fact that he has shown disrespect to his parents, in spite of the fact that he sold his birthright that was worth maybe $4 million for a $4 bowl of soup and bread, in spite of the fact that he's married these Canaanite women that have made life in the family bitter for his parents and his relatives. In spite of that, Isaac is hell-bent on blessing his favorite son. Look at the commitment to bless Esau, verses 1 through 4, chapter 27. It says, when Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could not see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, my son. And Esau said, here I am. Isaac said, look, I'm old and I do not know the day of my death. So now take your hunting gear and your quiver and bow and go out into the field and hunt some game for me. Then make me a delicious meal that I love and bring it to me so that I can eat and then I can bless you before I die. So Isaac is 100 years old because Esau is 40 years old in the previous paragraph. With increased age, Isaac's eyesight is diminished, and he's likely seeing his failing eyes as an indication that death is not far away. Now, what's interesting about Isaac's sense of where he's at in his life is that he thinks that he's in his last days. He's 100 years old. Isaac actually lives another 80 years, but his sense of it is that if my eyesight is failing, then maybe I'm not long for this world. And before he transitions to the netherworld, he wants to give his favorite son the patriarchal blessing. And so here it says in the text that to show how determined and motivated Isaac is to bless Esau, the Hebrew text says that Isaac says, I want to bless you with my soul. And so here the patriarch is determined and committed to bless his favorite son, Esau, and to bless him with his soul. Next week, we'll talk about the difference between the birthright blessing, the patriarchal blessing, and the covenantal blessing. This week, the focus is on the patriarchal blessing. Now, what's interesting is that we're left to guesstimate and surmise whether Isaac's will to bless Esau is contrary to God's will because Jacob is supposed to be the son of promise and is supposed to be the son of blessing. And so Isaac's will to bless Esau is at odds with Rebekah's will because her favorite son is Jacob, and God has already predetermined based upon Genesis 25:23 that the older will serve the younger. And so Isaac is at odds with God, and he's at odds with his wife Rebekah. And usually when you are at odds with God and you're on the wrong side of your wife's intention, you usually lose that fight. And so we will see as the story progresses whether Isaac is able to triumph, though he is in disagreement with God and his wife. Now, the text doesn't point this out, but something is amiss in this scene with Isaac and Esau. Because it's customary in the ancient world that when the patriarchs are going to hand down the blessings to their sons, they invite all of their sons to the father, and then he bestows the respective blessings upon the sons as he sees fit. What's interesting is that Isaac has two twin sons, but he's only invited his favorite son, Esau, to the blessing. Why not Jacob? Why isn't Jacob been invited to the party? That's the way it happens. We'll see that later on in Genesis as Jacob blesses his 12 sons, all 12 are present. When Joseph blesses his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, both sons are present. Why is Jacob not invited? Why is he excluded from this patriarchal blessing? That tells us and gives us some insight into the fact that this family is divided against itself, and a house divided against itself cannot, shall not, and will not stand, and it endangers and jeopardizes the blessing. We see, I love this phrase that I read in the commentary. It said, this text shows Isaac's zeal for the meal, and it matches Esau's zest for the blessing. Because as we move in verses 5 through 13, that Esau is just as desirable to receive the blessing as his father is to give him the blessing. So let's look at Rebekah's conspiracy against Esau and her con artistry against her own husband in verses 5 through 13. Watch this, because it says in verse 5, now Rebekah was listening to what Isaac said to his son Esau. So while Esau went to the field to hunt some game to bring in, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, or Yaakov, listen, I heard your father talking with your brother Esau, and he said, bring me game and make it delicious for me to eat, so that I can bless you in the Lord's presence before I die. Now, in the Lord's presence before I die is not what Isaac said to Esau, but it's her interpretation of that. She's trying to incentivize Jacob that this is going to happen in God's presence. Verse 8 and 9 say, now my son, listen to me and do what I tell you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice goats, and I will make them into a delicious meal for your father, the kind he loves. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. This is her deception, Rebekah's deception in verses 5 through 10. This matriarch's sinister scheme to defraud her firstborn son by deceiving her aging, impaired husband while enlisting her younger son as a disheartened accomplice. Remember the qualities that Rebekah demonstrated in chapter 24 that endeared her to Abraham's servant: her energy, her enthusiasm, her hospitality, her willingness to leave her family to go to Canaan land. Those were those qualities that made us love Rebekah and think that she would be a female Abraham. Those positive attributes and qualities and virtues are now vices, and now they're being used for negative and nefarious purposes. Oh, we had high hopes that we finally have a matriarch in this family that we could be proud of, and that our girls could emulate. And here Rebekah is showing these same strengths and these same characteristics being used for sinful purposes. But let's transition. That was his mother's deception. This whole idea to defraud Esau and to deceive her husband, this is concocted solely by Rebekah. But Jacob has some objections. He pushes back slightly in verses 11 and 12. Watch this. Jacob answered Rebekah, his mother, and he said, look, my brother Esau is a hairy man, but I have smooth skin. Suppose my father touches me, then I will be revealed to him as a deceiver and bring a curse rather than a blessing on myself. Jacob says, Mom, I can't pass the touch test. Esau is hairy, but Jacob is a smooth operator. Shout out to Sade. So how do we overcome Jacob's objection that he can't pass the smooth test? I mean, even if he's able to pass Isaac's taste test, there's no way he can pass the touch test. So Rebekah must cook like Esau, but Jacob must feel like Esau. And so how will that work? Jacob has no interest in the consequences should he be caught red-handed with his hand in the cookie jar. Jacob is more concerned about the consequences and not the character that is in question, or that would be in question should he go forth with the sinister plan cooked up by his mother. Jacob is compelled not to participate in the ruse on the grounds of fear of attrition, not the fierce sense of contrition. And let me make this distinction, because we talk about this when we talk about hamartiology, or the doctrine of sin. Well, attrition is grief or sorrow or remorse that comes from actions because one has to suffer the consequences of sinful behavior. It's man, I feel terrible because now I have to pay that ticket, or I feel terrible because now I have to come clean, or I feel terrible because I'm going to lose my job because I acted unethical in these business practices. But our sorrow, our grief, our remorse is only because now we have to deal with the fallout and the consequences of our behavior. It's not because we acted unethically, or because we did something sinful or dishonest, or we hurt the character or the reputation or the heart of God. No, it's just about me. It's a self-centered, narcissistic way to look at the fallout and the consequences and the repercussions of our behavior. Contrition is the other side of it. Contrition says, I have grief, I have sorrow, I have remorse. I'm mourning because of how my behavior has impacted the reputation, the heart, and the heart of God. What does that look like for God's reputation, for God's heart, for God's feelings, and for the feelings of the people that have been impacted by my sinful or my negative behavior? And so a contrite person like David in Psalms 51 is grieving over the fact that he's dishonored God and that he has brought trauma and terror to the family of Bathsheba. Now, I created a little bit of a vignette, because if Jacob had been motivated, inspired, and compelled by contrition, Jacob would have said this to his mother. Why doesn't Jacob say, Mom, this is wrong. This trickeration is disgraceful before God. It's dishonorable to my father, the patriarch of his family. And lastly, it disenfranchises my twin brother Esau. While I love you, Mom, and I appreciate your willingness to see me blessed at all costs, I cannot do this evil. Thanks, Mom. I love you so much. And I feel how much you love me, but I just can't do this to God. I can't do this to my dad, and I can't do this to my brother. Why doesn't Jacob say that? Why don't we say that when we're confronted with situations and scenarios and circumstances where we have to act in a sinful, dishonest, dishonorable, immoral, unethical way? Why don't we say that? So let's not just ask, why doesn't Jacob say that? Why don't we ask, why don't we say that? And here, Rebecca responds with a refutation. She offered, originally, she offered her deception. Jacob offered an objection. Now here's her refutation. Verse 13, his mother said to him, your curse be upon me, my son. Just obey me and go and get it for me. Rebecca counters Jacob's objection with a myth. Jacob's potential curse is non-transferable in the same way that a blessing is non-transferable. If you are given a blessing, that blessing is yours. It can't be shared with somebody else. In the same way, a blessing is non-transferable, a curse is non-transferable. And here, Rebecca's lying to her own son to persuade him to go along with this fabricated ruse. The promise that Jacob would receive all the blessings and none of the punishments of the curse should one be forthcoming is parental malpractice. to lie to your kid, to say that there's all reward and no risk, all benefit and no consequences, is not the way anyone should parent their children. In this next section of verses 14 through 24, Rebekah and Jacob's con artistry against Isaac and Esau takes center stage. Look at just the first four verses 14, 15, 16, and 17. The text says, So Jacob went and got the goats and brought them to his mother, and his mother made the delicious food his father loved. Now watch her actions. It says, Then Rebekah took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were in the house, and had her younger son Jacob wear them. And she put the skins of the young goats on his hands and the smooth part of his neck. And then she handed the delicious food and the bread that she had made for her son Jacob. Rebekah is the active conspirator in verses 14 through 17. She makes the meal. She rifles through Esau's closet. She picks the perfect outfit of Esau's, and she gives it the clothes to Jacob to wear. She attaches the goat skins to Jacob's hands and necks. And so this is the epitome of pulling the wool over someone's eyes. She gives Jacob the meal to present to Isaac. Rebekah, one commentator said, Rebekah is the primary actor, making Jacob little more than a puppet as she dresses him and pulls the strings that put him into action. So picture a puppet master playing and moving the puppet as he wheels with his fingers. That's just what Rebekah's doing to her favorite son in this story. Jacob is the passive co-conspirator with his mother. Let's look at verses 18 through 24 as Jacob is involved in this ruse with his mother. Verse 18 says, when he came to his father, he said, Father, and Isaac said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? And Jacob replied to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless me. Now Jacob tells three lies in verse 19. Jacob says, I am Esau, your firstborn son. That's a lie. I've done as you've told me. In other words, I went out and I killed the animal, and I have took the animal and I've prepared this meal, and I've prepared this meal. So I've hunted and I've cooked. That's a lie. He didn't cook and he didn't hunt. The third lie that he tells is that he says this game is for you. I went out and got this for you, and I've prepared it for you. Dad, I'm Esau. Lie. Dad, I've done as you told me. Lie. This game that I've hunted and cooked up is a lie. He did none of that. Now, the fourth lie that Jacob tells as he's pretending to be Esau is in verse 20. Watch this. It says, But Isaac said to his son, How did you ever find it so quickly, my son? Watch this. This is blasphemous. He says, Jacob replied, Because Yahweh, your God, made it happen for me. This is diabolical and wicked, more wicked than the other lies he told, because a blasphemy is on the lips of the future patriarch as he attributes his extraordinary expedition to the favor of Yahweh, Isaac's God. This is unbelievable that Jacob thinks so little of Yahweh, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac, that he would implicate him in this trickery, in this fraud, in this deception, in this treachery. It's one thing if you're going to commit sin. It's another thing to say God was an accomplice in your sin. That's out of bounds, but not for Jacob. because that's what he does. That's who he is. And in verses 21, what we'll see is this goes on because Isaac pushes back here. Says, how did you find this so quickly? Now, Isaac is losing his sight, but he's not losing his mind. He says, you couldn't have done this soon, my son. You're a great hunter. You're skilled. You're adept at hunting, but not even you could have done this quickly. Isaac shows that his aptitude and his cognitive abilities are still very much so intact. Verse 21, Isaac said to Yaakov, to Jacob, please come closer so that I can touch you, my son. Are you really my son Esau or not? Isaac is not sure that this son before him is really who he says he is. He couldn't have come back so quickly. That's one test that Isaac says this son has failed. And then he says, something's not, let me see if you truly are my son. He's come closely, let me touch you. The touch test. I'm sure that Jacob, as he comes close to his father, he's shaking in his boots. The fear that he shared with his mother is potentially coming true. My dad is going to find out that I'm tricking him, and this is going to be the worst day of my life. And I'm sure as he puts his hands out for his father to touch him, that Jacob is shaken before his father. Verse 22 said, so Jacob came closer to his father Isaac, and when he touched him, he said, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esau. This is one test that Rebekah and Jacob hadn't prepared for. They prepared the food that's going to taste like Esau. They prepared the clothes so that he can smell like Esau. They prepared the touch so that he feels like Esau, but the one test they hadn't prepared for is that their voices are different. Now, this started me to thinking that when Isaac demonstrates his misgivings and distrust by saying, who is this? Are you really my son Esau or not? I wonder if this is showing us that Isaac and that Esau and Jacob are not identical twins, but maybe fraternal twins, because their voices are different. And there's a distinction in their voices that this father picks up on. Now, fraternal twins share about 50% of their characteristics, whereas identical twins share 100% of their characteristics. So, are these fraternal twins and not identical twins? I'm not sure. It just started me to thinking about that because the father notices a difference in their voices. Isaac is struggling to reconcile the discrepancy. The voice sounds like Jacob, but the hands feel like Esau. Something's not right. And while Isaac has misgivings and distrust, Jacob is putting forth a misleading, dishonest charade before his father. Isaac is unsure. Jacob is trying to persuade him, no, don't believe your lying eyes, Dad. I'm truly Esau. Isaac is not totally convinced. And so here, what does Isaac do with the discrepancy before him? He is going to be bedeviled by this touch in verses 23 and just the A part of 24. The text says that he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he blessed him. Again, he asked, "Are you really my son Esau?" And he replied, "I am." So convinced by the touch, even though his logic tells him, and his ears and his logic tell him this is probably not Esau and likely Jacob, he's convinced by the touch test that this is Jacob. Now it's interesting because science has determined that when people lose their sense of vision, that it actually rewires their brain and heightens their other senses. So their ability to touch, their ability to hear, their ability to smell, and their ability to taste, those other sensory characteristics seem to be a little bit more hardwired and a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more accurate for that person that has lost their vision. And so Isaac's hearing is acute, and he hears the voice of Jacob. His touch is very much so rewired, and so he feels the goat skins, and he says, "Man, that feels like my son Jacob." There are some other tests that we'll see on next week that convince Isaac that this is Esau before him and not Jacob. Though he has some reservations, though there are some real discrepancies with the son before him, he's convinced that this is his oldest son, Esau, much to his dismay on next week. Let's look at some coram deos as we transition out of the story, and we look forward to our life groups on Tuesday where we unpack this and process these messages through our head, our hearts, and our hands. The first coram deo is this: may we be motivated, inspired, and compelled by God's character, his reputation, and his heart, and not our own skin or our own hide when we're confronted with ethical or moral dilemmas. May we be characterized by contrition and not just attrition. May the consequences not be the sole motivating factor for why we do what we do, but may it be the character of God, his heart, his reputation around the world, because we represent him as his ambassadors. So may we be known as people with contrite hearts, like David in Psalm 51. Number two, family dysfunction results from the malfunction of God-honoring roles, responsibilities, and respect. Rebekah and Jacob do not respect Esau and Isaac. And usually when we have a breakdown in the family, it's a result of roles, responsibilities, and respect. Aretha Franklin said, RESPECT, find out what it means to me. And there's so much disrespect and dishonor taking place in the story. It's hard to hear, and it's hard to watch and visualize that a family dishonors each other so much that they would go to such lengths to deceive and defraud one another. It's unbelievable. Again, these are the most dysfunctional and deplorable and depraved people in the scriptures, and yet these are the people whom God blesses. Number three, let us treat people with dignities, impairments, and special needs with the dignity and respect they deserve as image bearers of God, and never, ever, 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 ever exploit them like Rebekah and Jacob did Isaac. Leviticus 19 tells us to remove the stumbling blocks in front of people that are blind and people living with disabilities. And Rebekah and Jacob put a stumbling block that caused Isaac to trip up because he's losing his vision. Rebekah and Jacob don't even pass the Torah tests for how we treat people with disabilities, special needs, and various impairments. We're going to talk about that on Tuesday night at Life Group. What does it look like for us to remove the social and physical barriers and cultural barriers so people with disabilities, special needs, and impairments can fully belong as indispensable members of society and of our communities? What does that look like? Father, we thank you for this story because it reminds us about families divided against themselves, in danger and jeopardize the blessing. And yet, God, you're going to use this family in ways beyond their wildest dreams because of the promises you made to Abraham, not because this family is worthy or deserving, but because you are a God of the covenant and you're faithful to your plans and your purposes and your promises. So God, thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your goodness and your grace and your mercy, that even when we're hell-bent on dishonoring ourselves, God, you are supernaturally and sovereignly and providentially working through even our depravity, even our sin, even our iniquity to bring about your ultimate purposes for our lives, for your glory and our good, and we're grateful for that. So, Father, show up in our lives the way you showed up in the lives of these, your people in sacred scripture. May you orchestrate our destiny and our preferred future and our better tomorrow the way you did theirs. We're trusting you to overcome our own unworthiness, our own iniquity, our own sin, our own unrighteousness, our own wickedness, so you can bring about Christ-likeness in us, ultimately for your glory and our good, in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.